Hello world, this is Gary. Yes, I know Google Hangouts is going away August 1st. Oh, that's a new date. Huh. Hopefully I can still share my screen once they change that. We'll see. Let's share the screen. Alright, I was about to create a new block for the stats lab and the stats course. Share always, share collapsed. Let's pick a blue color. Let's see, it's been rather a cool summer. About a light, bright blue. Sure, let's make it accessible. Create. Hopefully I'll get at least one person joining me live shortly. Feel free to fast forward to see me playing with spreadsheets while I play around here. Add text. Stuff, eh? Alright, let's see. I think that looks good. Perfect. Let's see. Hello, statistics fans out there. How's it going? Yes. You see that, everybody? Hangouts on Air is going away August 1st. For quick streaming, try youtube.com webcam. So I did try webcam earlier, and it does not give you the ability at the moment to share your desktop, which is a problem. I'm sure they will contend with that. For now, you can show you. Let's see, cancel this. To a new page. For those of you with Google YouTube accounts, go to YouTube. Then in YouTube, yes, I guess I could try YouTube beta, because that's my only choice at the moment. Shot. Oh, my internet seems a little slow at the moment. I'm trying to join. I don't know of yet. Alright, back to YouTube. So, here's some of my stuff. YouTube, let's see, expanding the dashboard. Other features. Live events, probably. Oh, interesting. Live events. Well, that's different. Anyway, this is what I use to create my live events here. Just give it a title, I'll tell it when, maybe now, I want to do something. And it brings me to this page here. Share my desktop. It's kind of weird, huh? Right there. Or I can show me. Hello world, it's Gary. Sharing my desktop. All right, well, hoping somebody would have joined me by now, but let's go on without them. So, this is a video for Statistics Lab, and those of you taking Statistics Lab, you can access the materials in a couple of ways. There is a Canvas course that you should be enrolled in, wrong button, called Statistics Lab. Dashboard. Thank you. Statistics Lab if you've signed up. And then there's the weekly labs here. And every Thursday I'll do a broadcast on these unless somebody requests a sooner one. And my hope is someone will join me on these broadcasts so there's someone else to communicate with besides future people. But, you know, future people are good. Hello, future people. And each lab will have a similar setup. I'll have a write-up of the lab, I'll have some data, and usually I have a video I've pre-recorded for the lab. But nothing like talking to the human lab. So here's this lab where I'll list the outcomes, some questions, data, what we're going to do with it, and a bunch of questions. I'll work on that. Related spreadsheet is there. Let's close this other stuff. I tend to work with Google Sheets, although Excel works just fine. And the other way you can grab this information is I will post this stuff in our statistics course. So whether you're registered for Stats Lab or not, you're watching this video when you are, but you could be a regular Math 243 student. You can check out the Stats Lab block of stuff. Get access to the lab write-up data. I have some alternate data here too. And the pre-recorded video. There goes the new video. So, do it. I have multiple data sets here, theater data. So let's blow this up a touch. There we go. So I asked math students I've had, how many movies have they seen in the theater in the last 30 days? So we can see that they watched 0 to 3 is the biggest I've seen so far. And then the next column was how many movies they watched online. If you take a look at the description of this lab, you can see that the question was feature-length films, not episodes. And again, in the last 30 days, so in the last month-ish. All right, so the online is a little more interesting with a lot of variability there. 10, 30, 25, 0, it's all over the place. Lots of interesting numbers. I also asked my summer students, and I asked this of all my students each quarter, how much TV they watch each day. So that's a different question. So I added that right here. I guess I should edit that. Title, rename. So 2019 TV per day. This is 2018. That would be movies per month. Different data sets. Play around with each of these. So in 2 previous recordings, I played around with the theater and the online data, and you can check those out on my YouTube channel. I'm just going to play with this different data set since I haven't really seen it yet. So let's make this more clear. There is a title on the tab, but you really should have a title on the head of the column too. Brief pause to check to see if anyone's trying to contact me to get online. We'll contact there. Messages. No contact there. All right, get back to it. So let's insert new row at the top. And should go over to TV. Hours per. In this, I'm teaching 2 online classes this summer, and so far, my students have replied. I have 41 students have replied to this question. It's in the syllabus quiz of my classes. And what I'd like to do is I want to summarize this data. So to do that, I'm going to make what's called a frequency table. And you can read about this in section 1.3 of the book if you haven't already. In a frequency table, you're going to have some groups or classes. You're going to have the frequency, which is a count. And there's two different ways to make a frequency table. So let's take a quick look at what the book has. So hopefully you've been looking at your online book. There are links to it in the course information section. Section 1.3, which is where they move from talking about different kinds of surveys to what we do with survey data. And there's more about this in this chapter 2 also. So section 1.3, frequency tables. So table 9 here. Let's see, 20 students were asked how many hours they worked per day. And some people say 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours or 6 hours or 7 hours. And the number on the right says, for example, the 6 right here, it says 6 people worked 5 hours per day. Down here we have frequency and relative frequency. So of the 5 hours per day, the 6 people that did that would be 6 out of 20 people, or 30% of the data. 30% of the students worked 5 hours per day. So it's just a nice way to summarize data, because sometimes it's hard to look at a big list of numbers. So going back to this right here, I have this big list of numbers, which is hard to take in. Only 41 items, it's not that many, but still hard to make sense of it. So this is one way to play around with that. So looking at it, I see somebody claims to watch 7 hours a day. How can you have a life and watch 7 hours of TV a day? 9 hours, holy shit. Excuse me, that's a lot. Interesting. Then we have a fraction here, 5 out of 7. Oh, so sometimes when people give you data, you have to interpret what it means. So let's see, what did this one say? This person wrote to me that they watched 2 to 3 hours on their days off. Now I'm assuming, like most people, they work 5 days a week. That means they watch 2 to 3 hours on their 2 days off. So let's say that's like 2.5 hours for 2 days. That's 5 hours per week. I wanted to know how many hours per day, so I had to guess that they watched 5 hours per week, 7 days in a week, which comes out to an average of about 0.7 hours per day. So that's called scrubbing the data. I had to interpret somebody's strange answer, which wasn't exactly what I asked, but it was their best answer, their ability. That's okay. And that always happens. No matter how clear you try to ask a question, people will look at it slightly different than you said it, you thought it. Anyway, so I have to accommodate numbers from 0, looks like up to 9 with some fractions. So I think for now, I'll just group by whole number. So 0, 1, 2. Once you get a pattern where the numbers are the same space apart, you can highlight them. Oh, sorry, my touchpad sometimes is a little wonky. And then once you highlight them, let go of your pointing device, grab the bottom right corner, click and fill down, and the computer will try to continue the pattern for you. So I believe I have up to a 9 there. So what these classes mean are people that watched up to 0, from 0 to 1, from 1 to 2, and I'll be a little more clear about that in a minute. Now, I don't want to count these by hand because I can easily make a mistake. Putting them in order would help, but still, I could easily make a mistake. So what you do is, there's many ways to do this. I'm just going to show one of many. You highlight every adjacent cell plus 1. Then you let go of your mouse and you start typing equals frequency. And right away, the computer will say, oh, I only have one command that starts with FRE. And so then I select it. And usually it prompts you to enter the data next. So then I go over to column A and I highlight all my data. And it ignores text titles. I can safely highlight the title at the top. You don't have to. Comma. Then it says, where are your classes? So classes are how you're grouping your data. I chose my groupings to be as follows here. And so then I highlight those. So again, just spreadsheet tutorial, a couple of ways to highlight. You can click and drag to highlight ranges of numbers, or you can click, hold down the shift key and use the arrow keys on the keyboard. And sometimes when my touchpad's a little wonky, I do that instead. Then I close it. If you're an Excel user, you should do Control Shift Enter together. If you're a Google user, you can just hit Enter, and Google will say 4 people watched 0 hours. So 4 people had a 0. Now the 13 really means there weren't 13 ones, but there were 13 numbers that were greater than 0 and up to 1. The 9 means there were 9 numbers in the list that were greater than 1 and up to 2. Right? So let's check that out. So to do that, I'm going to sort this data. To sort it, many ways to do that. To highlight the list, to highlight here, and then go to the data menu to sort range. Say my data has a header row because I did select that header. And if you had other options, they would be available there. And I'm going to sort ascending, so that's smallest to largest. And I just want to confirm this 9 here. So greater than 1 up to 2 is my claim. So there's a whole bunch of 1s. All right, so there is a 2 there. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And after that, it's bigger than 2. So I've just highlighted 9 numbers that are greater than 1 and up to 2. And then I've over here and I can switch sum to counts. And Google says, yeah, the count is 9. Now I can double check that, what was it? This 13 here. There are 13 numbers greater than 0 and up to 1. All right, so that's a 0. This is the first number greater than 0. So I'm going to hold Shift on the keyboard and arrow down. And 2 is too far. And Google says I've selected 13 things, 13 numbers. So I could count them by hand, but the frequency command does that for me. I'll repeat that in just a moment. Now, my mom might look at these numbers and be a little confused, or my neighbor, and they might say, oh, 3 people watched exactly 4 hours. No, 3 people watched more than 3 hours and up to 4. So I could make that a little bit more clear with a human readable label there. Now the problem is if I try to change this 4 to something else, like maybe this is 3.1 up to 4, then that's going to screw up the way the frequency command counts, because the frequency command needs a single number here in order to count correctly. So in a minute, I'll program in a human readable version of this. So let's do this again. So I'm going to make a second frequency table over here. Clean this up a little bit. It doesn't have to get in touch with me. All right, eventually people will get used to how to connect. So frequency table 2. Again, I need a group of classes. Now, sometimes we call them categories or groups or bins or buckets. So it depends what software you're using. I'll call them groups this time. And then frequency, let's make count. And this time I'm going to do the groups a little bit different. I'm going to go up to 1, and then up to 3, and then up to 5, and so on. So I will explain again what this means in a moment. All right, so 11 is too far. I don't need to go that far. To do the frequency command, again, in the frequency column, I highlight a cell for every group plus 1. Explain that. Then I let go of the mouse and start typing equals frequency. And I highlight my data. Shortcut there is if you click on the top cells and Control Shift down arrow, it'll look for the bottom of the list. Scroll back up and highlight your groups. Frequencies, Excel users, Control-Shift-Enter. Google users, you can just hit Enter. So it does my counts. Now, earlier I said I believed I had 41 numbers in the list, so just double check that. Total here. I'm computer to add up sum my frequencies above, and they should add up to 41. All right, so again, I have a new frequency table with a different set of groups. And again, I can't change these here because the computer's using those numbers to get these totals there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a computer-readable, human-readable version. So to do that, I want to insert a column in between these two. So I'm going to go to Insert, Column Left, this up just a touch, readable, and so that you can see it out there. And I'm just going to rename this groups. What this means right here would be 0 to 1, and then see how I want to label the next one. The next one is going to be, let's see, these long decimals make it a little harder to name the group. Oh, I know how to do it. I can use an inequality. So let's go 0. Let's call these x values. Oh, oops. X is greater than 0. And x is less than or equal to 1. There we go. So here in the next column, next row, I'm going to have x is greater than 1 and less than or equal to 3. Okay, that'll do. And then this one is, and you might say, hey, that's a less than symbol, not a greater than. Well, you're supposed to read from the variables. So from the variables, this says x is greater than 3. And less than or equal to, oops, that's not a less than. 5 is a low edge. So it can't be 5, so that doesn't get an equal to. This one gets a less than or equal to 7. This column here, starting at 7, but not counting 7. And less than or equal to 9. And this one over here would be more than 9. Those are my human readable groups. And sometimes you have to make those for other people to understand. And there's no best way to do it. There's different ways to try and make that clear. And having decimals in the data can make it a little tricky, especially when some decimals have more place values than others. So I could simplify this a little bit by saying I'm only going to use 2 decimal places. People did enter things like a quarter of an hour, a half an hour, and then I just had that really wonky one there. In which case I could display these a little bit different. All right, so that's one way to do it there. What's the interpretation? Well, 6 people watched more than 3 and up to 5. So let's double check that. So we have them in order. Let's find the last 3. So more than 3. So that would be this one right here is more than 3. And up to 5. So that's too far. And I've highlighted 6 numbers there. So these are frequency tables. Relative frequency table. So relative frequency means what part of the whole is this? So it's one thing, it's nice to know that 17 people watch 0 to 1 movie, or 0 to 1 hours of TV a day. But 17 out of how many, right? So that doesn't tell the complete story. So to figure that out, I would need to know what's the total. I'm going to add that total back in here. To do that, I can do it a couple of ways. I can sum the frequencies, or I could count the data. So there is a count command. And to do that, I would just point to column A and say, hey, count all the numbers in column A. Here says, hey, there's 41, however you want to count them. All right, thank you. So over here, I'm going to make a column called relative frequency. And notice how that word escapes the cell and kind of overlaps the next cell. The next cell is still usable, so I could type something else here, like maybe I'm going to type cumulative frequency over there. And then once something's in there, though, it chops off what I see here. A couple ways to fix that. I could make this column wider to suit that, right? Or I could make it word wrap. So to word wrap, you would click on the cell you're interested in, and you're going to format the text wrapping option. And the options are overflow, so if there's nothing in the next cell, it flows into it. Wrap, which means take up a new line, or clip, cut it off. So the overflow basic option is a clip if there's something next to it. So they're related. I'm going to change it to wrap, and now it makes it just wide enough. Adjust it. So relative frequency is a formula, so you have to type equals first, and it's just the frequency divided by the total amount, the count. And I'm just going to type 40 on that. And it's going to give me a decimal. If I type my formula correctly, I can use the fill down button on it. And then I can make this prettier, because that's kind of ugly right now. So I think I'd like it as a percent, and I want to decrease the decimals to 1. Right, so my mom and my neighbor, they would like this better. So 41% or almost 42% of people that I surveyed watched 0 or 1 hours per day. Okay. Now some people watch less than an hour, so I could say 41.5% of people watched up to 1 hour per day. Interpreting that. To make sure I did this right, the total amount of data has got to be 100%. So if I do a count, a total on that column right there, so if I sum up the relative frequencies, better add up to 100%. Yep. Sometimes you'll get rounding error, so it might be 100.1 or 99.9, but usually it comes up pretty well. Cumulative means add these percentages up as you go. So the first cumulative one would just be equal to the same relative. The second one would be this 41% plus that 46%. So I can just write a formula that says equals this number plus that number. So the cumulative means that 78% of the people I surveyed watched up to 3 hours per day. I could write the same formula here, equals take the previous sum and add the new percentage here. 92.7% of the people I surveyed, my summer students, watched up to 5 hours. Now, this formula is really the same as this formula down here. They both grab the number above and to the left. So I didn't really need to retype it there. Once I typed the second formula here, I can just fill it down. And the last one should be 200%. I'm just going to repeat that because that's a little tricky. And I'll give up the index. So for cumulative on a spreadsheet, you have to just set equal the first relative frequency. After that, it's always take the cumulative frequency above and add the new frequency to the left. And then that second formula gets the magic fill down as far as it needs to go. And now I can see I've accumulated 100% of the data. All right, I hope this broadcast was useful. Do good math and stay in touch. I'll see you in the future. Say goodbye properly. Hello. Hello, and goodbye.